Hello and welcome to Quality Improvement Program for Mains 2020. In this video session, we are going to discuss question number 8 of the first test of Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude of L2 test series. The question is, laws and conscience act as source of ethical guidance. What if they start contradicting each other? What will you choose? Why substantiate? See, laws and conscience are two sources of ethical guidance. It also has been mentioned in the syllabus, so obviously it becomes very important. In the syllabus, there is a subtopic mentioned as laws, rules, regulations, and conscience as the source of ethical guidance. UPSC has asked question on them directly, indirectly, many times. For instance, this question of 2013 said, what do you understand by term voice of conscience? How do you prepare yourself to heed to the voice of conscience? In the same year, UPSC also asked a related concept to conscience, which is crisis of conscience. In one of the questions in 2018 paper, UPSC asked to distinguish between code of ethics and code of conduct. See, these two forms part of the law. Similarly, in 2016, UPSC asked this question, discuss the public service codes as recommended by second ARC. Even the codes, they are also part of the law. Law and conscience. These two are the major sources of guidance for ethical action to human beings. On the fundamental level, law is guided by conscience, but sometimes law also helps us to develop our conscience. So in synergy, actually, these two develop the ethics of a society. But the question is, what if they come into conflict? Which one will you choose? In the introduction, you have to explain what has been given in the contextual statement of the question. The contextual statement is laws and conscience act as source of ethical guidance. So you'll have to write something about it. Then the main question is pretty simple and you have to make a decision which one will you choose, law or conscience. You can choose either of the two. There is no right or wrong answer. Marks will only be awarded on your justification for your choice between law and conscience. Then in the conclusion, you should talk about how the situation of contradiction should be avoided, because law and conscience, they best work in synergy, and conflict is not good for ethical development of society because that will hamper the ethical guidance. Now let's come to answering this question. I have written in the introduction, law is an ordinance of reason for the common good, whereas conscience is something within human being that determines the morality of human actions. Law, most of the time, is the result of human conscience. What we feel as right and wrong, according to that, we frame the legislation. We feel that animals should be protected, so we have Wildlife Conservation Act. We feel that the environment should be protected, so we have Environment Protection Act 1986. If we feel for the gay rights, then in that society, homosexuality has to be legalized. So it's the collective conscience of the society which directs the formation of the law. And in synergy, these two imposes obligation to be ethical and becomes the basis of controlling behavior of human beings. So we have kind of explained or opened up the contextual statement, and that has become the introduction to the answer. Now let's move ahead as to talk about what will you do when there is a conflict. See, conscience acts as a spirit of law, which considers that procedure should not hinder the actual purpose of law. If you go by letter and spirit of the law, then the action will be very procedural. But conscience is not related only with the procedure, but with the ultimate purpose. So here you have already made it clear that you are going to choose conscience over the law. Whenever there is case in which the very purpose of law gets defeated, priority should be given to conscience. For example, in the unique identification verification, in the issue of Aadhaar, there have been cases where welfare schemes like the services through the PDS were not allowed to certain legitimate citizens because of the biometric identification issue. Now in this case, as per the law, they are not entitled, but the conscience of the concerned officer will drive him to make the services reach to the most needy people. So in that case, either you have to compromise on the procedures of the law, or such an elbow room must be specified in the law, and with dedication you will fix the issue. The issue here is that law is never universal. Law is never static. Law keeps on changing according to the need of time and people. Something could be legal in some countries, at other places in other countries it may be illegal, like the issue of gay marriages or living relationship. Being legal necessarily does not mean that it is right. But you must also acknowledge that conscience also has limitation. It is subjective in nature. It depends upon person and also society. In certain society, patriarchy may be promoted even by the collective conscience of the society. But however, even though conscience has limitation, it could be subjective. Its applicability in bringing justice definitely is wider than the law. Conscience is to law what brush is to paint. Without conscience, law cannot exist. Law actually emanates from conscience. So conscience definitely will have precedence whenever there is contradiction between law and conscience.